Fuji Sports. Listen, they've been working with us for a while now. Particularly, they've been supporting and sponsoring this show for over a year. And they have some cool stuff going on their website, don't they?
They always have cool stuff. Amazing gear. Anything you would need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com. But just scrolling through right now, apparel, obviously, gis, bags, anything you could possibly ask for, you can find at fujisports.com.
Hey, it's been a while since we started RŌL TV project.
It's been a while since you started it. I did come in later, and I can't say enough about it, especially the new platform. It's really amazing, fully customizable, and you know a little bit more about the structure.
Well, so two things you need to know. One is the subscription service, which is $9 a month. You can get access to hundreds of videos, hundreds of drills, techniques, and so on in a very nice library categorized as you need them. But two different lessons. You can actually purchase those individually and you own them. So the subscription is not tied to it at all. You can look at things like spider guard, half guard sweeps, half guard chokes, folding pass, and so on. There's so many of them out there. So take a look and see where you need help with the videos, right? 30%. If you type in RŌL Radio as a code.
Who doesn't like saving money? Go to rolacademy.tv. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. Today's guest had a front row seat and an insider's point of view during one of the biggest moments in MMA, The Ultimate Fighter Season 1. Rory Singer was in Forest Griffin's corner during the fight that many still consider the greatest fight in MMA history, the TUF Season 1 finale. But Rory was an impressive fighter in his own right, having been cast as a member of The Ultimate Fighter Season 3, as well as fighting in the UFC, Pride, and several other organizations. Since the end of his fighting career, Rory still competes in Jiu Jitsu and has become a highly respected and sought-after coach. Here's the RŌL Radio with the co-founder of Atlanta's Hardcore Gym, and along with his brother Adam, founder and coach at the extremely successful SBG Athens, former MMA fighter, instructor, coach, and activist, Rory Singer.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live. Gary, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
You are extra happy because you haven't seen me in a couple days.
I've had a couple days break scheduled, just spring break with the kids, and got a ton of messages from you on that first day. It was like you forgot all about it, but that's okay. You know, it's all right. I got the side eye.
I have to message you before I forget. You don't have to check your messages immediately.
Yeah,
right?
I get the side eye from Margaret. Like, Jesus, will he leave you alone for 5 minutes? But other than that, everything was great. So fun with the kids, and now we're back at it.
Well, listen, I'm taking your seat today. I'm a little grumpy. I'm a little under the weather. I might be sniffing a little bit. So
I'll keep all that stuff on your side of the table because I've been through it already.
The dynamic will slightly change.
We can't have two.
You're going to be the happy one. I'm the grumpy one today.
We cannot. Yeah, I was going to say, we can't have two grumpy sons of bitches on this show.
Oh, no my God. That's how we're starting this show?
That's how we're starting.
Oh, boy.
But let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Rory Singer. How are you, sir? Great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Well, I appreciate the invite, and thank you all. It's a pleasure to meet you both, virtually or like whatever this is. I appreciate you having me on and look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, it appears as like the virtual conversations is the norm today. It's not necessarily what I'm at least used to, but I'm getting used to it slowly. So I appreciate
slowly.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm old. I like in-person interactions, but anyhow.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Thanks for being here. Interesting part about your life that you've been involved in martial arts for a very, very long time, for a very young age. But not only that, I would consider you as part of the pioneers of what we know as martial arts today. You've been involved in TUF 1 through training with with Forest Griffin, and then obviously Stephan Bonnet, that big fight. There's a big component of it, right? And then you were on TUF 3 yourself. And then obviously a successful coaching career and so on. So you've been involved in quite a bit of all this. how is this cataloging in your head? I mean, like, do you ever sit down and kind of reflect on it? It's like, damn, this is deep here.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because we were talking just a little bit earlier before we went live that we just had a coaching course over the weekend for our assistants and our coaches to be at SBG Athens, and part of it is a history lesson of the gym. It's part build culture, it's part teach coaches how to coach and stuff. Right. And it's really only during those moments when you're sort of explaining to someone else what it is, where it is you came from, how this all transpired, just by the nature of doing something you love, martial arts, fighting, helping other people sort of get what they want, that this whole thing has grown. So when I look back on it, yeah, like we were sitting in Dana White's office after Forrest beat Stephan Bonner. Sorry that you had to hear that. But we're sitting in his office, and he, at that moment, had no idea what just happened. But within moments of that fight ending, which he went on to say was the biggest fight in the history of mixed martial arts, where you can see screenshots of it where my brother Adam and I are sitting in a corner with our friend John Grantham, was also there, who was unfortunately no longer with us. But fielding phone call after phone call after phone call from news medias and outlets that had never considered mixed martial arts, fighting, UFC. But all of a sudden here was this thing that I can only imagine as the rounds went on, just uptick, people calling people, you gotta turn this thing on. This is incredible, because we were there and every round was just more incredible than the last. So to have been there from the beginning of that, to then to be on TUF, to where we are today, and I'm sure we'll get through some of that. I'm not sure how long you want me to speak. I can talk for a while myself, but it is very neat. It is something I take a lot of pride in, to having been there from the beginning. Again, Forrest did most of the work, but to have been his training partner and taken a lot of the lumps, to have been fighting alongside him through a lot of that, to being in his corner for his first couple UFC fights before he moved to Vegas to chase the girl who's now his wife and mother of his child. It's been quite the ride.
Well, so talk to me a little bit about these meetings that you have, or these courses that you have for your instructors. Like, you talk to them about the history, and this is what we've done. We've been fortunate to be part of these opportunities. You know, this is the history of the gym, of the academy, of this facility, of this team. Do they comprehend the magnitude of what this is? Because I was there on the opposite side. You mentioned, like, I was fortunate enough to be part of Stephan Bonner's team, and we were getting him ready and all that. And I know how this looked in my mind. I can assume how this looked in your mind. But do your students now, you know, a generation or two generations later, do they even know what in the world this was?
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of old also. I'll be 46 in May, so I guess that does make me kind of old.
Yeah.
I think some of them do. I know that. So you mentioned we have a coaching course, and part of SBG and one of our mottos. So it's an international organization started by Matt Thornton, who is one of my dear friends and somebody I consider a coach. Is one tribe, one vibe. So a part of that coaching course, yes, you want to help people to become coaches and learn what it is, because coaches, as they say, are sort of not always born, they're made. Mentality-wise, maybe they're born, but you've got to teach a coach how to be a good coach. And part of that is also helping these people who are going to lead and be a bigger part of the academy and the community and the culture to understand the history and what got us here, and why SBG Athens is different than other martial arts academies, why that culture is important, why one tribe, one vibe is important, why we do the things we do, we coach the way we coach, the philosophies and things that sort of surround it. So I think some of them come into the gym and know that. I think some of them are just on Google searching for mixed martial arts. Maybe they want to fight, or they listen to Joe Rogan or Jacko or some other folks on podcasts, and they want to get involved in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and we do a really good job with our marketing and such. So when they search for those things, they find us. And when they come into the academy and see 12,000 plus square feet and nice mats and really nice strength and conditioning equipment and a place that's been around. I mean, we've been teaching in Athens since 1997. My brother and I started coaching at the University of Georgia with the first Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and mixed martial arts club. So there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of experience there. So they come in and they see all that. A handful of them probably know that history and did some research before coming in, but I think a lot of them probably don't. So when they come into this coaching course, it's important for them to know really what they're a part of. It's important to know that my coach, Matt Thornton, sort of helped to push through the idea of aliveness in martial arts, because we all came from a time of Jeet Kune Do and trapping and energy drills and a lot of nonsense. We're doing a lot of nonsense, and we sort of all were thinking similar things, but at different places, and converged to realize, well, we were thinking this stuff, a lot of this was nonsense, and you were doing it and you thought it was nonsense. You were able to codify it with aliveness and get on the MMA.tv forum, the old underground years ago, and just write page after page after page throughout the night. Like, did you even go to sleep? And it's important for them to know that that's where we came from, and that's why we do what we do, and that's why they're there, and that's why they enjoy the place as much as they do, and to be able to sort of interact with students with that knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting and important part of all of this, that the evolution continues taking place, right? And I think you guys, what you just mentioned, is very important for any instructor in any organization to really expose these new individuals to some of the history and where all of this started as this individual facility or as an art in general. Do tell me when you are there with Forrest and you guys are getting ready, or he's getting ready for that match, do you know the magnitude of that moment that is about to take place? You talked about after the match, phone calls are going. I mean, the madness begins, and we all know what happens after that. The MMA is not what it was the moments ago, right? But do you know, as all this is unfolding, are you comprehending the level of what is about to unfold?
No, there's not. I don't think so. Maybe no. When you consider how incredibly famous Forrest became. I remember being in, I want to say it was Atlantic City. Now my times and my dates, my brain is a mess, but the times and dates, I'm pretty sure it was Atlantic City, and he fought either Elvis or he fought Mahood somewhere. Maybe it was Elvis, and so it was only like his third fight in the UFC. So it was Stefan, then maybe it was Bill Mahood, it was Elvis Sinisek. There was one other fight in there somewhere. And we're walking through the casino, the hotel, and Matt Hughes is there. And I'm pretty sure Matt Hughes was a world champion at that time. And everyone just blew by Matt Hughes, and it was just all about Forrest. Everywhere we went from that moment on, it was larger than life. People living in Athens, Georgia, University of Georgia. We were, what was that? So we were a few years removed from being students, but we started off at the University of Georgia. We were still in Athens. We were still downtown. We were young guys going out and having fun and training and doing all the things that young fighters do. And people would stop them on the street and ask for autographs. So I don't know if at that moment when that fight was over and, we were in the hospital and I was with Stefan Bonner's girlfriend or fiance at the time, and we're walking through a drive-through to the window because we didn't have a car. We were right across from the hospital getting them food, and they were all banged up. And I took that picture of them, which I still think is being used by the UFC today. Maybe they'll pay me some royalties one day. I don't know if at that moment I understood the magnitude of what had just happened, only that we were certainly a part of something unique that hadn't happened before. But to know in that moment that it was going to be this monumentous, this biggest fight and most important fight in UFC history, I'd be lying to say I knew that in hindsight.
Yeah, but it has to feel refreshing or very satisfying to have that opportunity, because a lot of people would say it's essentially being lucky at the right time, being in the right place at the right time. That's how it was, because if the fight might have gone slightly different, the response would not be the same. If the fighters would be different, the fight wouldn't be the same. Perhaps even if obviously UFC haven't done such a phenomenal job promoting the sport, and today trillion-dollar company. I mean, it's such a huge, it's a humongous thing, right? It's a, things would not be the same. So it has to feel satisfying to some sense to be part of that.
For sure. It is satisfying. There's a great pride taken in that, because if it weren't for Adam and his ability to coach us all the way he did and to get us ready in the way he did to stand up, clinch, and ground, but if it wasn't for Forrest and Bonner having basically what seemed like a total lack of self-preservation in the cage that day, because you see it today. I mean, that fight could have been a 3-round snooze fest. It could have been two gentlemen who, because of the gravity of the situation, fell apart under that stress, right? You see a baseball player, we've worked with the Pittsburgh Pirates in the past, and one of the things, the batting, we did some batting practice. And I remember the batting coach saying, the thing that separates a minor league, this guy playing in the minor leagues from this guy playing in the major leagues, is really just the stadium. And maybe it's a little size of the stadium and the amount of people in a stadium. It's the gravity of the situation. People are pitching as fast. People are running as fast. I mean, nothing else has changed about the game except now they're in this thing. You see people come from Pride to the UFC, from other organizations to UFC, and they fall apart under the weight of the situation. These two dudes went out there, and it was either going to die on your shield or come home on a type of mentality. And it made for one of the, not just the most important fight in UFC history, but it made for one of the best fights in UFC history, because they threw down. So there's a pride in having been a part of that, having been a training partner to that, to be able to say that you helped prepare. Well, at least my brother can say that he helped prepare for that event to take place. But obviously the 99.9% of it goes to those two athletes that were in the cage that day, and threw down as if their lives depended on it.
Yeah, and I mean, no doubt. Today, the fights are not the same. Matter of fact, what you said, that fight might have been the best fight ever, right? Today, we have a little bit more strategic approach, and I don't know. Was there a strategy behind either one of those guys? I don't know. They were just going. They're just going at it.
I believe we probably had some and had discussed some things, but when it got in there, it was just two dudes who were just
slaughtered
every round, step to the scratch, right? Yep. That whole dog fighting tournament. They got to that line, and it was time to go, and you were going to have to, one of them was going to have to kill the other one. And if that fight had been 5 rounds, it probably would have been 2 more rounds of that. They might have been a little more tired, but they still would have been punishing each other.
Yeah.
Is that mentality? Is that something, you spoke of your coach? Is that something that can be taught? Or are you born? You have to be born with that.
I believe that's one of those things where you're born, not made. Speaking from experience, I was not that way. I even actually had I even did some where they put you under type stuff. What is like hypnosis? MRI? Actually did some hypnosis therapy. Yeah. I did some hypnosis therapy. I did some different things. I worked to try and bring out a mentality that was not necessarily the mentality that I always had. I started off with a good mentality. I might have lost it somewhere, and then I brought it back towards the end of my career. But I don't believe that everybody walks into that cage with a total disregard for their own safety and well-being. And that's very much a way that Forrest lived his life. Not to say that he had a death wish, was going to step in front of any cars or anything, but he was fearless in that regard, and a little bit crazy. I think it takes a little bit of that as well. But he was fearless. He outworked everyone. I mean, you still hear, then it's a little further away, but back then you would hear about his unimaginable work ethic in the room, his incredible cardio, the amount of people we'd have to throw at him to just break him down in a practice, Shark Tank him with 10 or 11 every minute just to wear him out. But he was going to fight until there was no fight left in him. I mean, he was in Brazil and had his arm broken and knocked the dude out with the other arm. We were in South Africa fighting. As I come out of the dressing room, because I had just got done fighting, I see him in the air. The 7-time South African wrestling champion is slamming him on his shoulder, breaks his collarbone. Luckily, that dude gassed a little bit, but by the time that fight was over, Forrest was on top of him with that arm, choking him out. And he still has like a lump on his shoulder that's like this big. So that's a different type of person. You know, I would say Uriah Faber has some of that. 2 broken hands in a fight, yet he's still getting after it. Leg kicked off, or the next day his thigh and his calf are the same size. But then you see that others don't. You see them get punched in the face. And as Mike Tyson says, they've all got plans till they get punched in the mouth. Mm-hmm. And you see them crumble and you see them collapse under just a little bit of stress, a little bit of pressure. So for sure, he had that from day one. I remember watching video of him playing football on the sideline, take his helmet off, and he's headbutting his teammates who have helmets on. I mean, that was just the type of person Forrest was.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What?
So Forrest played, I guess it was high school. Didn't play football in college, but high school football. And I remember seeing some video, him on the sidelines, excited and amped up, and his helmet's off, and he's like headbutting his teammates without a helmet on. No thought in the world. I mean, I've seen him do some other crazy things also with no thought in the world that ended with him bleeding on himself. But that's who Forrest is and who he was. And now he's just a little bit more old and broken. So you just, he doesn't get to be that way as much anymore.
So let's remove Forrest from that conversation for a moment. And let's talk about you as a coach and having the opportunity to work with many, I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of different people over time. Do you think, and this is like the $1 million question for everybody, is it the talent that we are born with, or is the hard work ethic that really matters more? Because then from one point of conversation, we have, well, I said remove Forrest, but we'll use him as an example, right? We have guys who are they have this thing. It just, no matter what they do, they just grind it. But then we have guys, historically, you can look at, I don't know, Michael Jordan or other athletes just all around, where they are the first one at the place, they are last one to leave. Their work ethic is so ridiculous that they will suppress the lack of talent with the precision that they are developing all throughout those skills. As a coach, which one do you think is more important?
I think the mentality, the willing to work. So I'll use me as an example. I don't know where I qualify as an athlete. I was not really pushed as a child to see what kind of levels of athleticism I could have achieved. But I did fight at the highest levels of mixed martial arts. I did fight in UFC. And at one point, I was considered one of the better 85-pounders, and just didn't work out. Not a big deal. I can pick up a basketball. I can pick up a football. I can watch videos, learn how to do a lot of different things. So I am athletic. But I needed to be up at 5:30 in the morning to lift. I went to school in the beginning. I worked. I taught at night. So I had a work ethic, and that drove the rest of it to then be in the gym and put the work in and be willing to be coached and to get better. But you could have an unbelievable work ethic, but if you're not athletic, then your work ethic is probably going to, you like a Bill Gates, for example, at the right time in the right year, he's in a room on the computer coding like 18 hours through the night. And then look what happens. I'm sure that if he tried to pick up a ball, it would look terrible. Or maybe I'm wrong, but let's just go with that for a moment. But the work ethic lends itself to matters of the mind and academics, where the work ethic put together with the athleticism allowed Forrest to excel at mixed martial arts. My work ethic and my athleticism allow me to excel at mixed martial arts at that moment, but I don't know if that happens today. I don't know if 25, 26-year-old Rory competes today at 185 the way some of these other cats who are now more athletic and likely working just as hard, at least at those higher levels. If you're not willing to work hard, then what really are you going to accomplish in any aspect of your life? You have to be willing to do the things that other people won't do. As my brother Adam says all the time, you have to do the things that champions do today. You can't wait to be a champion to do things champions do, because it just you're not going to get there. So are you willing to wake up, put in the hours, strength and conditioning, the rehab, the prehab, the proper eating, the proper sleep, just everything that goes along with being a high level athlete. And then if you also happen to be athletic, then you will have success. But then you also have to have that third piece, which is you are willing to go out there and not try and not lose, but you have to go out there and try to win. And you have to go out there and be willing to say that this might be the last time that I ever fight again. And if it is, then so be it. I will walk out of that cage knowing that I did everything in my power to win that fight, and I got bested by the better person.
You said something interesting just now. Trying not to lose versus trying to win. Is there a difference?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think you can
give me a perspective on this. Give me a perspective, because listen, this is like the glass half full, half empty. A lot of people have different perspectives on this, but this is it hits me right in the head. So do tell.
I'll use an example from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? Since the sport of sport Jiu-Jitsu, which to me is not necessarily Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as it was founded, but sport Jiu-Jitsu being this thing that people will game, that they're always having to make new rules for because people will game the rules and figure out ways to win. But I've competed since 2013. I've been competing as a master's black belt, right? I don't put in a lot of time and effort to be a world champion. I just still love to compete, and I can't fight 20-year-olds anymore in mixed martial arts. And you can see that on the mats where people are playing the game, and in their minds, there's a score and they're trying to hold on to a lead, but they're not just letting it go and seeking to finish, to pass a guard. They'll half pass a guard. They'll get back in your half guard. But it looks like you did something. But just, instead of possibly getting put back in a full guard or getting swept or whatever it may be, they don't just put forth the greatest effort. You see that in fights also. You can see a person who is willing to either stand in the middle, I won't say stand in the middle, but stand in the middle, to counter from the outside, to mix it up every now and again, to bite down on a mouthpiece, to get in a fight, as opposed to jab and run, jab and run, jab and run. Yeah, that's a way to win. But if you're not even willing to jab, sit down on the right hand and throw across because you might get taken down or maybe you get countered, then are you truly trying to win if that's 15 minutes worth of fight or 25 minutes worth of fight? There have to be moments where you are willing to take a chance. And you can see that some fighters aren't willing to take a chance. And again, not flippantly, for lack of a better word right now, but to be willing to do the things that are required to end a fight, to get in the mix, to throw down a little bit, to not be worried about getting hit. Although, yes, you might get knocked out, but to fight, you don't always see that. But you know when that fight's going on because you can see and respect an athlete that's like, that dude's getting after it. That girl's getting after it. Watch this last weekend. The girl from England who threw that spinning elbow. Yeah, she got hit a little bit, and maybe you don't want to get hit that much. Patty got hit a little bit. Maybe you don't want to get hit that much, but he's got an aggressiveness. He wakes up a little bit, and then it's on. And then you're in a fight with a different human being than the guy you hit because he started a little too slow. They're separate things.
So essentially what you're saying is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if I'm understanding this wrong, but what you're saying is one is very conservative approach, playing it safe, not to lose, and the other one is taking risks with the hope of a much higher reward, which is the ultimate win.
Yeah. Or I fought in Pride Pride Best. So it was like the Pride B League. Daijiro Matsui was coming off all of his world-class beatings, and I was a main event in this event for Pride Best many years ago. Took the fight on like 8 days notice, got to go to Japan, made like $1,000, but I got to go to Japan, so that's cool. And I remember I think it was the Pride guy. I remember him just being in a room with us and just saying, these fans are fans of warriors. So as long as you go out there, now they didn't have another event after that one, I don't believe, but he said, as long as you go out there and you fight and you show that warrior spirit, we don't care. I mean, again, look at Daijiro Matsui, and if you don't know who he is, if you're watching this, you don't know who he is, look up his record and see who he fought, and then see how many beatings he took from some of the best fighters in the world. And people loved him for it. Whether that's great for your longevity or not, they loved him for that. And I think the fans love that. And I think that Dana White sees that. Who's the dude who just lost like 8 fights in a row, but always comes to fight? Smiling, what's his name? Smiley guy.
I'm not sure.
Avery, right?
I'm not
Smiling
sure, but I'm
Avery.
thinking about like Cowboy is one of those guys that the fans adore because he'll take a fight against anybody at any time. Doesn't matter if he's moving up or moving down. And 99% of the time you're going to see an amazing fighter. And it doesn't matter if he
Nick and Nate. Look at Nick and Nate. Take away whatever you think about them as human beings, but they are going to stand in front of you. They're going to box off your ears. They're going to fight you on the ground. They're going to flip off the fans in the other corner and talk junk. And whether you like that or not, the fact is that those Diaz brothers, they are fighters. Like, they embody what it means to be a warrior, and not everyone does. And that's rewarded with other fights. I believe that's rewarded with fans who love you and hate you, but they're still going to watch you. And, but no one wants to watch a dude not get involved in a mix and fight and try and win. And again, when you see that, because those fights end up being boring, or they're very one-sided, because you can't win a fight that way if you're not willing to engage and fight.
So I'll put you on the spot here for a second as a coach.
Please.
As a coach, right? If you have these conversations with your fighters or your competitors, would you rather for them to win a fight with this, let's just call it a plateau approach, very safe, conservative approach, but they are winning. They are consecutively winning. They are just winning one after the other. Or you have these guys who go balls out. They don't care about their own safety, but they create the entertainment scenario where fans are going crazy and they are not as successful. So what's more important, the strategic approach of winning, of this factor of entertainment?
I think it's all important. So that's a cop out. But you mentioned Cowboy earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I might get some hate for this, but I think Cowboy should be done, right? I don't think Cowboy should fight anymore. I believe that his last couple fights, he has taken some hellacious knockouts, unless he were to take off quite a few years, which now he's a little bit older. Mm-hmm. It can certainly be to your detriment if your lack of self-preservation leads you to be in these wars all the time. That is definitely going to shorten up your career. But so there has to be both. Like, you can be strategic and still fight to not be hit and to have head movement and good footwork. Like, I'll use, Dominic Cruz is a good example.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Right? Dominic Cruz, great footwork, practices that in the gym all the time. Blown out ACLs, but great footwork, hands in the mix, beautiful, that little knee tap thing he does. But that's a guy who's trying to win. Maybe not older Dominic Cruz, just because his athleticism left him a little bit, blown out knees on both sides repeatedly. But early Dominic Cruz was a joy to watch. Even after he beat Brian, you still have to, one of my fighters, Brian, it's still, and took the belt from him, actually. Watching him prior to that, watching him after that, he's a hell of a mixed martial artist. He's a great fighter, and he fights and he gets after it, and he's trying to win, even with the dancing around and the lack of being hit. So he's had a really long career because of that. I can't come up with an example of someone, maybe like you've seen heavyweights who haven't really fought and do these 5 rounds, sort of lay on each other, and then dude wins and still never comes back to the UFC. Mm-hmm. But guys who lose, who are willing to stand there and maybe trade a little bit again, maybe not the best for longevity, but when someone's going to come out and fight, then you're excited about what may happen. and people are going to tune into that. But as a fighter, as a coach, I want my fighters to have both. I want them, first of all, if everything is easy and they never have any adversity in the cage, and the minute they have adversity in the cage, then you don't know how they're going to react to that. Right. And they're going to either fold or they're not, but you don't know. So you need them to have some adversity as amateurs, as some low-level pros. But, you certainly don't want them to stand and be rock'em sock'em robots, but there's an in-between there somewhere that's not rock'em sock'em and not shy, passive, don't get involved, just don't really fight. So there's a middle ground, and maybe you move in and out of that in a fight. But there is an entertainment value that's involved. There's a reason why they keep inviting Conor back, even though he's lost 5 out of the last 6 or whatever it's been. But he's entertaining. So there's something to be said about being entertaining, but you also have to have a long career if this is the way you want to pay your bills.
Yeah, for sure. It's a grind. But the entertainment part, I mean, this is why, guys like McGregor and many others, from entertainment perspective, they draw a lot of viewers. And I mean, let's be honest, it is an entertainment sport. And if people are not watching it, no matter how good you are, nobody's getting paid. I mean, that's just logistics of the situation, right? So, hey, listen, do you remember you mentioned that Pride on 8-day notice? How did that happen? First of all, you went to Pride on 8-day notice. Are you out of your mind?
So Pride best. So I don't want to overreach, since I know he didn't fight him. He didn't fight him. Pride best, Volume 3. What's that shit? So whoever was managing me at the time, and I couldn't tell you who that is anymore. But I got a phone call, and he said, they're looking for someone to fight Taijiro Matsui, be the headline event. It's Pride best. It was supposed to be their feeder league. Mm-hmm. And I knew who Taijiro Matsui was. Again, he was somebody of my era, Vanderlei Silva, Rampage Jackson, all the others. And they said, you're going to go out with 2 other Americans who are also fighting on the card, and maybe one of their coaches, but you're not going to go out with a coach. It's in 8 days or something, like 10 days or whatever it was. And you make $1,000 and you'll get a free trip to Japan. They'll put you up and blah, blah. I said, sure.
What year is this?
2005, maybe 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there.
Okay. All right.
I certainly wasn't in the UFC yet. And I was on TUF in 2005. So maybe it was like 2003.
Okay.
Or something like that. And so if we may, take a step back. I was never the person who was like, I want to be UFC world champion, right? I was never, it wasn't me. Maybe that was to my detriment as a UFC fighter, as a fighter in general, that I didn't have this goal, this dream. I had an engineering degree. I enjoyed competing, had my first fight because I just wanted to see if any of these things we were doing was really worth anything. We can talk about that first fight and fighting a BJJ world champion. But I never had this. It wasn't in me that I want to be world champion. I want to be, Matt Hughes, Royce Gracie, blah, blah. I enjoyed fighting, and I wanted to see what I was capable of. So I fought in South Africa and made my pro debut in 2001 in Johannesburg, South Africa. I actually fought in the same ring that Mike Tyson fought Rockman. I think that's the one he lost in Carnival City in South Africa. So I got to go to South Africa for like 8 or 9 days and go on safari and have monkeys climbing all over my hut and stuff. Like, that's really cool. Like, someone's like, you want to go to Japan? Shit, you want to give me a free trip to Japan? I'll go to Japan. When do you get to just go to Japan and it not cost you thousands of dollars when you're already relatively a broke human being? So you're like, yeah, let's go to Japan. I'm going to make $1,000. Cool. So there was nothing to lose, everything to gain, a chance to fight a Pride veteran and someone who had the respect of all of the world of mixed martial arts at that moment. And, those are the things and the opportunities and the moments and the memories that I always appreciated that mixed martial arts brought me, more so than what can this do for my career. Now, yeah, certainly fighting in UFC as I got on I wanted to, but it wasn't to be a world champion in UFC. It was just, could I compete? Could this middle-class Jew from New Jersey who carpet-bagged his way to Georgia fight at this level against this level of opponent? And when those opportunities showed up, then I took them because it was trying to prove something to myself and that I belonged and I could do this thing that I really love doing.
So walk me through this. You fly out to Japan, and then
California, Japan, yeah,
and then life is beautiful. I mean, it's all rainbows and unicorns,
dude. Honestly, it was awesome. So I got to eat sushi in Japan. We got to go to the red light district. I watched my the Americans that I was there with get shuffled away by young ladies who were probably doing all kinds of things to them. I had a girlfriend at the time. I don't cheat, and I didn't cheat in Japan. So I just waited for them all to come back. We got to go to the naked, exciting place because that's how it was explained to me by the woman at the front desk. I'm like, I wanna see some, so they're like, oh, you want the naked, exciting? Oh, you go to the Roppongi. I was like, yeah, naked, exciting. That's where I want to go. And it was Sunday in Japan, and guess what's closed on Sundays in Japan?
The one day, the naked, exciting.
The naked, exciting. So we went anyway. And I got paid, and we fought in a cool ring had steel cables. It was a ring, but it had steel cables, like jacketed, like it was like being on a wall. And I remember one of the guys I was with saying that they were astounded by how relaxed I was. I was actually yawning before I went out because what was going to happen? I mean, I knew Daijiro Matsui was tough, but I also knew that I could beat him. And I did, even though I lost, but that's hometown nonsense. And I pummeled him, and his face looked like mush. And when he had his hand raised, he looked like he was the most surprised out of everyone in there. I wasn't surprised as I heard them call. So I'm like, of course. But I had murdered him, basically. And then he won, and he came after, and through an interpreter, just invited me to come train with him and told me how impressed he was with the fight and all these things. He knew he lost. And it was just an amazing experience again, I got to go to Japan. Who gets to go to Japan? I imagine most people on planet Earth who don't live in Japan don't ever get to go to Japan. And I did, and someone else paid for it. So that's cool.
That's awesome.
Hey, listen.
That's awesome. I want to know.
Hey, Gary, you want to go to Japan?
Yeah, if you're paying for it.
I'll pay for it. All you need to do is just get your face smashed.
Oh, well, that happens here, so why not in another country?
But listen, it's a different perspective was back then, right? 20 years ago or so, when these opportunities were presented, Japan or local or South Africa or America, it was just a very different perspective. Today we have slightly different approach when these things comes in. It's like, who's going to fight? Where is it going to be? What's the payouts? What are my strategic approaches to this? What are the odds? Do you think that
can I get some film footage? Like, the dudes had 5 amateur fights. Just shut the fuck up and go fight.
Right.
But that's what we're doing nowadays.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I'm sorry that I cut you off, but I know where you're going with that. And it's true. Like, back then I took a fight on 1 day's notice. I drove to Florida. I made weight. I fought the next day. I thought I was going to fight at that moment at the time, and I'm glad it wasn't, but I was on my way to go fight Dustin Dennis, who at the time was a black belt. I eventually did fight Dustin Dennis, but it wasn't Dustin Dennis at that time, which was probably good for me at that time. But I took a fight on like a day's notice and went and fought, I think it was Butch Bacon. I think I took fights on other short notices because back then that's what you did. You didn't know how long all this was going to last. I mean, John McCain trying to make things illegal and cockfighting and blah, 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 human cockfighting. Nowadays, you have dudes with, I'm not even worried about the 20-0 and the 25-0 amateur records, but did you fight anybody? Or did you just amass some kind of amateur records? You can go on TUF, which I get it. I did it. But there is so much protection that goes on, for especially the young fighters, that they never have an opportunity to really, not all of them, obviously, but those that do that, they never have an opportunity to have some adversity, to have some real pressure put on themselves, to really test themselves. And then the moment that happens, they fall to shit. Because if it's not happening in a training room, which is still not the same as it happening under lights and people came to watch you and the pressure of all that, and again, the gravity of the situation, but those are the types of things that are going on because there's money involved now, more money than there used to be. And because of that, there's a lot more safety and restraint that's put into how people make their way up the ranks.
Yeah, no.
Can you see in people right away that they're going to be one or the other? They're going to be the person that will always put in that extra work, or they're born with something that, like you said, Forrest was. Can you tell right away with those people?
Yeah, it doesn't take too long. For sure, it doesn't take too long. If you get again, there's a big athletic component to this. You're still, and then again, as the money comes into it, my brother always says that athletes follow money, right? That's why football, he'll tell you that football athlete, like an inside linebacker or whatnot, probably some of the best athletes in the world, and get paid a lot of money. You know, basketball players get paid a lot of money, baseball players. So athletes follow money. Now, not everybody can play those sports or do, so they end up going to martial arts. So there's an athletic component for sure. And you can't nowadays, you can't overcome a lack of athleticism with work ethic, with work ethic. You can't. You'll have some success in the lower level amateur. You'll have some low level pro success, but eventually that lack of athleticism is going to prevent you from having success at the higher levels. So over time, you see someone has the athletic ability, and then you see how self-motivated they are. And especially at our gym, because my brother, Adam, is not one for screaming and yelling at people. Like, you need to be self-motivated. You have all the tools in my academy, beautiful weight room, training partners, one of the best coaches in the world, in my opinion, 2 world champions under his belt. 12 dudes in the UFC. Some of the biggest names came through my gym over the years, maybe not as much now ever since sort of the culture has changed, but Todd Duffy, Carmelo Marrero, Junior Asuncao, Jeff Bedard, who was in WC, Mike Miller. Like, so over the years, we've had, some dudes and had some success, but he wasn't one to ever scream and yell. He's not calling, he's asking you, did you get up and do your strength and conditioning? And it's either yes or no. There's no but, yes or no. And that is certainly something that you can tell over time. And you still put energy into those people, but at some point you have to have a conversation with someone that says, listen, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish here, but if what you're trying to accomplish, if it's not congruent to what you say you're trying to accomplish, and then you have to have a conversation. I mean, I've had some heavyweights in the room that probably could have been UFC champions that, again, maybe it wasn't what they wanted to be. They just enjoyed the fighting and maybe the lights and the stage and the atmosphere, and that's fine. But if it's what you want, then again, your actions and your training are not congruent with getting there. Got to do the things champions do to be a champion. Even if you're never going to be a champion, if your goal is to be a champion, then you have to do those things, and then it'll either work out or it won't.
Right, and neither one is wrong. If you don't want to do it, that's fine too. Just have a realistic perspective on realistic expectations of what the results will be. Let's just be honest here, and this goes all across everywhere, whether it's fighting, career, or being a plumber or chess playing. It doesn't matter. You need to put the work in. There is a factor of being quote unquote born with it and having some talent, some athleticism when it comes to actually the physical sports. But you got to grind it. It is what it is. There's no days off, in my opinion, at least. I mean,
no.
Yeah.
There's no days off in MMA. It is a year-round sport. You always have to be learning. We talked about evolution earlier. I mean, the sport evolves. You have to evolve with it. You have to always be in it, trying to improve. But if you are not willing to put the work in, like, again, I compete in Jiu Jitsu against other old dudes, but they're black belts. In some tournaments that if I go to, I'll have Saulo Ribeiro in my division. I mean, maybe on a good day I catch him. Likely not. But the opportunity to compete against him, just to be able to say that, shit, I competed against Saulo Ribeiro, that's amazing. I would love that. I love to compete, but I am not in the gym preparing myself to win a Masters World Championship. because I don't have that level of interest to put that level of training and preparation into something that would be cool, but it's not that important to me. Like if I just happen to fall into it, like because for some reason I beat 6 or 7 dudes in a row then fucking hey, cool. Like that's incredible. But it's not going to be because I was in the gym 8 hours a day getting ready for that thing, forgetting about my family, forgetting about my business, living, eating, breathing, competitive jiu-jitsu. I just don't want to do it. I'm 45. I'm not really on anything. So my body's not likely going to keep up with that kind of training anyway. But I just enjoy the opportunity to try and tear someone else's arm off because I can't do that to my training partners.
Yeah.
And with that comes the opportunity that somebody might do it to me. And that to me is fun and a worthwhile experience. Get to go to Vegas, get to go to other cool places, hang out with friends, eat good food. And then there's also this thing I'm going to do on Saturday. I'm going to do some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you absolutely right on all this. I don't know who somebody on this show who told us that being competitive is, and it should be, a very selfish act. But being a coach is a very selfless act where you're dedicating this passion and skills and everything you're trying to relay that information to others versus competing and being an athlete. It's all about me, and you have to put everything else aside, including your family, including your friends, your hobbies, good food, and like you have one-track mind in order to achieve that success.
For sure. I've said similar things and discussed that with others as well. It's not necessarily it's not a negative to say it, but it's true. You have to be selfish to be a world champion. It has to be about you. Now, in our room, I get that, we developed at least a culture where dudes would go fight and they'd come back. Nowadays guys go fight and then they disappear until the next fight. We didn't have that kind of room, but I certainly understood that this person has to worry about themselves because they're trying to be a world champion and this is what they're trying to make their living doing. But we weren't going to have anyone in the room that at least didn't, if they were healthy enough to come back, because if somebody helped you prepare, then you better be back in the room helping them prepare. Not just taking, 3 months off until you get another call from somebody to get prepared for something else. But nowadays, you don't have to worry about that because nowadays there are people with lots of money who are running these camps and things where, you're not part of a team per se. They're bringing in everybody for you and your nutrition, and it's all about you. And it works out a lot better that way. And they pay other dudes to come in to be your training partner and take the lumps. We grew up in a different time. We didn't have that. So we all made sure that we were there for each other. Listen, there was a point in time where the hardcore gym, I think of it as the alpha team before it was the alpha team. Like I had dudes in the FWC from like 135, 25 up to, 45, 55, all training together at the highest levels and all helping each other, get ready. And as long as they were healthy, they were back in the room. And we're starting to try and build that again to some degree now that my brother's taken a bigger stake in the coaching again, and we're trying to build back up some of these young kids, and got a great room of guys who are training together, coming in on their own and holding hand pads and doing the S&C and staying after. And, so we'll see what that future holds for our fight team, but it is a different time than it was when we did this 20 something years ago.
Yeah, most definitely. Not only the sport has evolved, but also the way how we look at the sport has evolved. So the intelligence behind human body, nutrition, and so on, just training itself has changed so much over the last decade or two. It's just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing.
For sure.
Gary,
For sure.
I saw you wanted to say something.
I was going to backtrack a little bit. We talked about Tough TUF, and so you were there for that first year. Were you at that point already being thought of for a future season? Did they even know there was going to be a future season?
Oh, you're talking about the first
Yeah.
one?
So because you were on 3, right? Yeah, but
Yes.
So
yes.
in between
they
1
did.
and 3, when you were on there, was it already pointing in that direction for you, or were you like, "This is I need to work to this. I want this opportunity," or was it presented to you? I guess.
So yes, I think the answer is yes to some of that. I'm not sure which. We'll
All right, let's move on.
Gary has very convoluted questions.
So season 1, Forest we sort of knew, but he did a really good job. You know, we signed, like I remember signing the $3 million, $5 million no talk clause, or whatever the hell it was called. So he came back and we had a fight. Did we know who was fighting? Maybe we knew who was fighting, but we didn't necessarily know for what. But over time, you got to figure out there's something going on here, right? So we definitely knew something was going on when they came out with the producers and the crew to film Forrest, who was living in my 1-bedroom apartment in a little cordoned off area. We had, like, you know, those, you go to like a Chinese food restaurant, they have those divides that, you know, so you can go behind to go to the bathroom type thing. Well, we had sectioned off a little part of my living room, and I had a computer desk and we had a TV, and he was sharing my apartment. So they came back to the apartment, like, this is the Spartan lifestyle he's living. Go to the gym, which was a smaller gym, not the gym we're in now. And they're interviewing myself and Adam and some of the other people that knew Forrest, and we're on camera together talking and stuff while we're in the apartment and whatnot. And they just really liked me. So that was season 1. Season 2, I think, was some callback. Was it season 2? Some of the callback folks? I don't remember exactly, but season 2 was happening. At some point between season 1 and season 3, I actually got a call to fight in the UFC. And I want to say maybe it was Joe Dorkson. I can't remember, but it wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right opponent. But I was on their radar. I had beaten Wilson Govea in King of the Cage. I had a decent record, couple losses in a row, but a couple wins coming off some things. And people were starting to talk about me as an up-and-coming 185-pounder, one of the top 85-pounders in the Southeast at that time. But it wasn't the right time. And then season 3 is coming around, and I'm in nursing school at the time because I had an engineering degree from the University of Georgia, and I was doing some things, and then that didn't work out. So I was working, selling like car insurance and some other stuff. And I went to nursing school. So, like, you know what? I want to be a certified registered nurse anesthetist. I probably should have went and been a doctor or a surgeon, but now I'm too old. I'm not going to do that now. So I was in nursing school, and I get a call from the producers that I had met. I think it was Jamie Campione and somebody else. And they're like, we're doing a season 3 at 185, and we really want you to be on it. Like, I'm going to call you back every day incessantly until you say you will be on this show.
You have a choice, but you really don't.
And they really they just liked my personality. They liked me. And that show was all personality driven, which it took people, it took people a good 6 or 7 or 8 seasons to realize, why is that jackass on this show? And like, oh, because he's a jackass and he makes for good TV. So they made they did some things that allowed me to go out there and study, because I had finals coming up. I actually had to postpone one of my finals, but they let me do a bunch of different things. I basically went out there a little bit late, secluded in a room, met with the main producer. He's like, I've already talked to these folks. They like you a lot. We talked for like 5 minutes. And as I was leaving that conversation, he's like, don't tell anybody, but you're on the show. So I was able to come back and tell my brother. I was able to come back and put my schooling on hold. And then, you know, I was on season 3. People didn't, we realized on season 3, at one point, like when you realize like the whole people are on the show because there are characters and their personalities and we have to sell advertising. Season 3, they did away with the challenges, right? So they had challenges on season 1. They had challenges on season 2. Do you remember the challenge on season 2? Do you know why they got rid of the challenges? Do you remember the one challenge on season 2 where they were doing the climbing around each other?
Yeah.
And I think it was Stevenson did like 1,000.
Yeah.
And then like the next day, or whoever did like 1,000, the next day he was worthless.
Right.
Well, season 3, they didn't do any more challenges because they realized that people would game the challenges and we're not going to do those.
Yeah.
We all got along so well in season 3. I was playing chess with Caleb Starnes that they brought back all the people who had lost. Season 1, they didn't. It was just a few of them in the room, in the house. Everyone else lost, went to like a secluded location. Season 2, the same. Season 3, they were like, these guys are fucking boring. We gotta spice this up. What do we gotta do? So all of a sudden, the door knocks, the doorbell rings, and all of a sudden, you hear all these dudes who didn't make it to the semifinals coming to the door. Like, I just knocked Solomon Hutchinson out with a head kick, and that that dude standing right in front of me, and they were all such assholes when they came back. And from that point forward, 4 or 5 and on, they didn't remove the losers. So now you had a bunch of dudes who would lose their fights early and then just be assholes. Yeah. And that's what people wanted to see.
Eating, drinking, throwing shit in the pool.
Yeah.
Putting their heads through walls, throwing shit through, like all that nonsense. Because again, because you got to sell advertising. It's a TV show. It's a soap opera for people who like mixed martial arts and aren't home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's a true reality show. Yeah. Hey, what was the craziest moment in the house? Can you say it, or you're still under non-disclosure?
No, we can talk about all that. What was the seriously? We didn't. I can't. It wasn't. I mean, I guess the ongoing thing that was ridiculous was like all the Rory is gay cheat. Like people would write Rory is gay on all my shit. I remember people messaging me, "Are you gay?" I'm like, no, some asshole put that on some cheese, man. Get a grip. It's TV.
Yeah.
I was saying that probably the craziest thing that happened was probably when Noah Inhofer left, because there was some nonsense going on with his girlfriend. And they were like, your girlfriend called and blah, blah, blah. And I think they even let him talk to her for a little bit. And he got in a room with Dana and it was like, I have to go.
I kind of remember
like,
this, yes.
You're kidding me. Like, you're going to leave. It's like, yeah, girlfriend. But and he was so dumbfounded. That was probably the craziest thing that happened, because outside of that and maybe shenanigans and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, even though to this day I can't stand most of those people, for the most part, we got along pretty well. It was only the 3rd season, so it hadn't gotten too crazy yet. But I think subsequent seasons got pretty out of control. Like I said, they had to bring dudes back because we were playing chess. We were kind of boring.
Yeah, I mean, this is as the show went on, people start discovering that more attention you draw to yourself, there's more opportunities.
Even if you lost, you'd be on a show somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it was. Listen, if I would do it all again now, the stakes would have to be a little bit better than like a $5,000 contract, but I do it all again. I mean, it catapulted me into the UFC without having to really go through the UFC. Again, I had an opportunity. I turned it down. But now here's this thing. My contract was better than it would have been had I not been on the show. My stardom was slightly better had I not been on the show. And you had this marketing machine around you. So it was well worth it for that experience. And I was fortunate enough to be on a team with better coaches than the other team, because fuck it. That team was just that shit was the donkey. They were just terrible. Their coaching was just terrible. So I worked out. I had Saul Solis, again, tragically lost him not long ago. And I'm not a giant fan of Tito Ortiz, and there's no love lost there between us, but his incessant need to win provided some great coaching with him, Dean, and Saul. So, I learned some things. I brought some things back to the academy when I came home, and it was a great experience. Didn't really go the way I wanted it to, obviously, but I still managed to win my fight in that finale card against Ross Poyton, 44-second submission. Still stands as the fastest submission in middleweight history. 44-second submission, 16 years this year.
That's great. That's awesome.
That's
right? Because I didn't fucking do well in the UFC, but that's still hanging out. I'll take it.
You must have done something right. But listen, you mentioned something really important. That sometimes we, as life goes on, whether fighting or just real life, off the mat or outside of the ring, we learn things, important things, from people that we don't like, and that's a really important lesson for, I think, a lot of us. A lot of people ignore this. I don't like this guy. He got nothing to offer, and like I personally can tell you that I learned some really important life lessons from people that I completely, fundamentally disagreed with. There is a lesson behind everything. It's just, do we see it? That's the big one. Listen, Rory, we've been at this for a while now. Before we wrap up this great conversation, what we do every end of every episode, person who was sitting in your seat a previous episode asked a question, not knowing that it's going to be you that we will be asking that question, and Gary's going to take a lead on this. Let's take a look.
So this comes from Fabio Clemente, and I'm going to change it up just a little bit based on your career and your longevity and stuff. But he wanted to know what what are your expectations for your future beyond your prime competition? So let's go back a few years and say, as you were coming out of, bigger fights, UFC, and maybe you knew things were about to change for you. What were your expectations for your future at that point?
So in 2009, Brian had just won the world championship, and we moved into our new gym. And in 2009, in February, I fought Brian Baker in the MFC in Canada. And it was actually beating breaks off him. And with 10 seconds left, he actually knocked me out. I was through the ropes, and I think I just had a brain fart. He actually knocked me out. 4-fight losing streak. And we were opening up the new gym that we're in now that has since expanded. And I just realized that I needed to put some efforts into getting this gym off the ground and, this new space, bigger rent, pay my bills type of thing. I hadn't been working because I had been fighting, and that was paying my bills from the show and from the UFC and some bonuses. So my expectation at that point was to grow this thing, to grow this academy. I just got married in 2008. Wife wasn't yet pregnant, but there was obviously, that was going to be something in the future, hopefully children and a family, which now have 2 beautiful children, Xander and Finley. So the expectation was to grow this thing, maybe go back to school. Like I said, I was in nursing school, so maybe I'd have to go back to school, but figure out how to run a business, how to make this thing profitable, and how to make this something that would last forever. People talk about legacy, and I think having been in Athens for 25 something years, coaching since 1997 at University of Georgia, to have something that would help more people than just a handful of fighters, realizing that you do a lot of good in the world if you open up the amount, like the type of good you can do. It's one thing to help somebody become a world champion. It's another thing to help someone lose 100 pounds, or to help a young kid find some confidence and find his voice and ability to make some eye contact, to show women that they have more power than they might believe because they now know how to defend themselves against, and on the mat doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I don't know if I had like grand expectations, but I just knew that I expected that I'd put in the work and the effort and figure out how to make this gym thing work out. And, 12,250 square feet later, and a couple hundred members, 16 black belts, couple world champions, 4 jerseys on the wall for TUF, a host of medals, hundreds and thousands of pounds lost. Donated hundreds of thousands of pounds of food to the food bank, to the local food bank, blood drives, toy drives, free self-defense seminars, a booster club for our fight team and our kids. It certainly has exceeded my expectations. Zig Ziglar said, if you help others, you can have all the things that you want in life if you help others get what they want in life. And just by doing what I love and working hard at the business, maybe not always working hard, but that could be another podcast. But doing all the things that at least I love, being true to the martial arts and aliveness that Coach Matt preaches about all the time, and growing our tribe and our culture and our community, understanding that what we do in martial arts is the least important thing that we do at SBG Athens. And that's, I think, something that's really helped us to mold the culture in the community, is that we realize that we can do so much more good if we run the business properly, which doesn't always get done. Just want to fight, or people don't pay for memberships. You just run it like it's just something you do in your spare time. I run it full time, and I realized that we can do a lot of good for a lot of people inside the academy and also in our community by making sure that we are the best we can possibly be, evolve with the times, and run an actual business. And then at the end of the day, my business does so much good both inside and outside. So it has exceeded my expectations for sure.
That's great.
Well, it's great to hear that. And on this show particularly, we we talked about quite frequently with different instructors, different coaches, business owners. The academy is often being viewed as clubs and businesses, and there is a big difference between them. One has this opportunity to really impact people in the community off the mat, and the other one is, let's just
it serves
it's a hobby.
Yeah.
They're hobbies.
It's a hobby.
And that's
Absolutely.
great. Listen, and that's great.
Absolutely. No disagreement.
sure.
There is a demographic that this club or this hobby catered towards, and that's really important too. All I'm saying is that impact is very different in each, and identifying which one you are and which one you want to belong to is very important to where you're going to go. Listen, before we wrap this up, where can listeners find you? There was so much information, so much good gems that we talked about today. Where can individuals find you, reach out to you? Where's your facility? Talk a little bit about yourself. And we'll post all of this in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Well, it's easy to find us. It's sbgathens.com. And then it's SBG Athens on Instagram. TFW Athens, which is the organization we're involved with that does our strength and conditioning program, training for warriors under good friend Martin Rooney. You see him in Jim Miller's corner all the time. So SBG Athens on Instagram, and on TFW Athens. We're in Athens, Georgia. We're at 240 Collins Industrial Boulevard, Athens, Georgia, 706-850-8444. Easy. We have programs for the whole family. Most of what we do now is family, even though we have fighters again. We're all about training. We have 3-year-olds in our Micro Monkeys class and our Growing Gorillas program, hence, gorillas. We have Micro Monkeys and chimps and spider monkeys, and then juniors because they're older and they don't like silly names. We have a really amazing group of ladies that train with us, our girls and geese. But we really have something for everyone. And if you don't want to get sweated on and pull hairs out of your mouth, then we have training for warriors and a great strength and conditioning program for people who don't want to touch one another. And like I said, we've been teaching and coaching in Athens since 1997. We're in the Georgia Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame, a couple world champions, 16 black belts. My brother and I are 3rd-degree black belts. We'll be 4th-degree black belts next year. And we are something for everyone. We have something for everyone. So, and everybody. So if you're looking for it, you're in the area, now you know, come and find us.
You didn't know, now you do.
Great stuff.
Rory, thank you for last hour or so of your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Truly inspirational. I got to tell you, I've been on the mat for 20 plus years, and, doing what you do since 97 and making the impact that you have made with your brother to jiu-jitsu community and just fighting community in general to MMA, it's phenomenal. So I want to congratulate you on your success. And so much more to come, I would only imagine. So I'll be watching from sidelines.
Thank you both so much for having me on.
Thank you. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.